Refund to be granted both in cash and credit based on original mode of payment. The refund to be granted both, it may be in cash or it may be in credit based on original mode of payment, means the refund to be granted, it, it is in cash or it may be in credit. It is based on the original mode of payment. It is based on the original mode of payment. The refund of tax shall be made proportionately. The refund of tax shall be made proportionately in cash or by recreating the credit based on the original mode of payment. The refund of the tax shall be made proportionately. It is in cash or by recrediting of the credit. It is based on the procedure and the payment of the refund based on the original mode of payment. The amount refundable in cash shall be paid by the issuance of order in prescribed form, and the amount attributable to credit as ITC shall be recredited to the electronic credit ledger by issuing the prescribed form. Means the amount which is refundable in cash, then it shall be paid by the issuance of an order in the prescribed form. And the amount which is attributable to be credited, means which is required to be credited, then it will be credited in the electronic credit ledger account by issuing prescribed form. If it is refunded in cash, then a order in the prescribed form issued by the proper officer for such refund in the respect of payment of such amount. And if it is credited, if it is credited, then it will be recredited in the electronic credit list by issuing the prescribed form. When, where, upon examination of the refund application, the proper officer is satisfied that a refund under section 54 subsection 5 is due and payable to the applicant, where on the basis of examination of the refund application, when the proper officer is satisfied that a refund under section 54 subsection 5 is due and it is payable to the applicant, it is a payable to the applicant, then the proper officer, when the proper officer is satisfied, then the proper officer shall make a refund order in the prescribed form. Then the proper officer shall make a refund order in the prescribed form, sanctioning the amount of refund which is to be paid. The proper officer shall make a refund order in the prescribed form, and he will sanction the amount of refund which is to be paid in cash. Proportionate to the amount debit, proportionate amount to be debit in the cash against the total amount paid by for discharging tax liability for the relevant period. Means the proper officer, if the proper officer he is satisfied that the application of refund which is made by the person is complete and such person is eligible for the refund, then the proper officer shall make a order, then the proper officer shall make a order in the prescribed form, and he will sanction the amount of refund. He will sanction the amount of refund, which will be paid in cash proportionate to the amount debited in cash against the total amount paid for discharging the tax liability for the relevant period, mentioning therein the amount adjusted against any outstanding demand under the Act and under any existing law, and the balance amount refundable. And for the remaining amount, and for the remaining amount which has been debited from the electronic credit and for the remaining amount of tax liability, he will use the he will use it or he will debit the electronic credit ledger for making the payment of tax. The proper officer shall issue prescribed form for recreating the said amount as ITC in the electronic credit list. Is that if there is any amount of tax which is required to be paid by the taxpayer, then then he will first he will use the amount of such a refund which is available in cash, then after he will use the amount of input, electronic cash reserve for the payment of such liability. The proper officer shall issue prescribed form for recreating the said amount as ITC in the electronic credit list. The above provision shall not apply to the refund of tax which is paid on zero return supply or deemed export. The above provision shall not be applicable in the case of zero return supply, in the case of when there is the refund of tax. When there is the refund of tax, the tax which is paid on zero rated supplies or deemed export. Zero rated supply or deemed export. Where the proper officer is satisfied that the amount which is refundable under Rule 92, Subrule 1, Subrule 1A and Subrule 2 is payable to the applicant, where the proper officer is satisfied that the amount which is refundable under Rule 92, Subrule 1 and Subrule 1A and Subrule 2 is payable to the applicant, then the proper officer the proper officer will not credit such amount to the consumer welfare fund. He will not credit such amount to the consumer welfare fund. He shall make an order or he shall make a refund order in the prescribed form, and he will issue a payment order for the payment of such amount when he is satisfied that such amount is required to be paid to the such person. Then, in the respect of this, he shall make an order. He shall make a order in the prescribed form, and he will issue a payment order. And he will issue a payment order for the amount of refund. For the amount of refund, he will issue a payment order. Amount of refund shall be electronically credited to any or bank account of the applicant. Amount of refund shall be electronically credited to any or bank account of the applicant which is mentioned in this in his registration particulars and as specified in the application for refund on the basis of consolidated payment advice. Consolidated payment advice. The amount of refund shall be electronically the amount of refund shall be electronically credited to any of bank account to any of the bank account of the applicant. Means the amount of refund shall be electronically credited to any of the bank account of the applicant which is mentioned in this registration. Means the amount of the refund will be credited by the it will be credited by the government or sorry by the proper officer any of his bank account of the applicant, the bank account which is mentioned in his registration particulars, or which is or if it is mentioned in application of refund, then the amount will be credited on his account on the basis of consolidated payment advice. On the basis of consolidated payment advice. The refund order issued to prescribed form. The refund order which is issued in the prescribed form shall not be required to be revalidated by the proper officer. the refund order which is issued, the refund order which is issued in prescribed form. The refund order which is issued in the prescribed form shall not require to be revalidated by the proper officer. Means the refund order which is issued by the proper officer will not require to be revalidated by the proper officer. However, a payment order shall be required to be revalidated only when the payment order is required to be revalidated only when the refund has not been disbursed. When the refund has not been disbursed within the same financial year in which the said payment order was issued, in which the said payment order was issued. Is that the payment order shall be required to be revalidated. It should be revalidated only when the refund has not been disbursed. The refund has not been disbursed within the same financial year. Within the same financial year in which the said payment order was issued. In which the said payment was issued. The central government shall disburse the refund based on the consolidated payment advice. The central government shall disburse the amount of refund on the basis of consolidated payment advice. The central government shall disburse the refund based on the consolidated payment advice. Where the proper officer is satisfied that the amount which is refundable under Rule 92, Sub-Rule 1, 92, Sub-Rule 1A and Rule 92, Sub-Rule 2 is not payable to the applicant. If on the basis of verification it was found that and the proper officer is satisfied that the amount, the refundable amount is not payable to the applicant. In such case, he shall make a refund order and he will issue a payment order for the payment of such refund, and such amount of the refund will be credited to consumer welfare account. Such amount of the refund will be credited by the proper officer in the consumer welfare account. It will not be transferred. It will not be transferred in the account of applicant. It will be transferred to the consumer welfare account when the proper officer is satisfied that the amount refundable under Rule 92 is not payable to the applicant. Time limit for the issuance of refund order. Time limit for the issuance of refund order. Refund order shall be issued by the proper officer within 60 days from the date of receipt of application. The refund order shall be issued. The refund order shall be issued by the proper officer. It shall be issued by the proper officer within 60 days. It should be or it shall be issued by the proper officer within the period of 60 days from the date of receipt of application. Refund order shall be issued by the proper officer within the period of 60 days from the date of receipt of application. Complete in all aspects, complete in all respects. It should be issued within the period of 60 days from the date of receipt of application. The time limit of 60 days shall be counted from the date of filing claim for refund as mentioned in acknowledgment which is received for refund claim. The time limit of 60 days, the time limit of 60 days shall be counted. It shall be counted from the date of filing the claim. The period of 60 days shall be counted from the date of of filing the claim for refund, which is mentioned in the acknowledgement which is received for refund claim. Means the 60 days will be counted from the date when the application is filed for claiming the refund, and such a date will be mentioned on the acknowledgement. Now we will discuss the issue of show cause notice and rejection of refund claim. Rule 92, sub rule 3. Issue of show cause notice and rejection of refund claim. Issue of show cause notice and rejection of refund claim. Rule 92, sub rule 3. Rule 92, sub rule 3. In case the claim is sure to be rejected by the proper officer, in case when the claim is sure to be rejected by the proper officer, a notice has to be given online to the applicant, stating the ground on which the refund is sure to be rejected. In case the claim is sure to be rejected by the proper officer, when the refund is rejected by the proper officer, the application for the refund is made by the applicant, and such application is rejected. Such application is rejected by the proper officer. Then a notice has to be given. Then a notice has to be given to the applicant online. Then a notice has to be given to the applicant online, stating the ground on which the refund is rejected. Means a notice has been given to the applicant, and such notice will be explained the ground why the refund is rejected. Why the refund is rejected. The applicant need to respond online when the applicant receive the notice from the proper officer, when he will receive the order and he will obtain the order online from the proper officer, then the applicant needs to respond. Then the applicant needs to respond such application within within 15 days online. Means he will give the response, or he will provide the response online within the 15 days from the date of receipt of such notice. If he receive a notice 1st January, then within 15 days from such 1st January, he will provide the response of such notice to the proper officer online. Thus, no claim can be rejected without putting the applicant to notice. Means if the proper officer wants to reject the application of the refund without giving the notice, then he can't do so. Is that any of the application cannot be rejected. Any of the application cannot be rejected. It cannot be rejected without without putting the application to application without putting the application to the applicant. Means before the notice, no application of refund can be rejected. Before the notice issued, then after, the application can be rejected properly. The detailed provision has been discussed as follows. Now we will discuss the detailed provision about the rejection of application and notice, where the proper officer is satisfied for reason to be recorded in writing. Where the proper officer is satisfied for reason to be recorded in writing that the whole or any part of amount which is claimed as refund is not ascertainable, or is not payable to the applicant, he shall issue a notice to the applicant in prescribed form. He shall issue a notice to the applicant in the prescribed form, where the proper officer is satisfied, where the proper officer is satisfied for reason to be recorded in writing that the whole or any part of the amount which is claimed as refund is not admissible, it is not admissible, or it is not payable to applicant, then he shall issue a notice to the applicant in the prescribed form. When he is satisfied that there is no need to make the refund of such payment to such applicant, then he shall issue a notice to the applicant in the prescribed form. The applicant will the applicant will be required to furnish a reply. The applicant will require to furnish a reply within the 15 days of within the 15 days of the receipt of such notice in the prescribed form. When the applicant will receive the notice from the proper officer, then within the period of 15 days from the date of receipt of such notice, he will reply he will furnish a reply he will furnish a reply within 15 days. The proper officer shall, after considering the reply which is furnished by the applicant, the proper officer shall, after considering the reply which is furnished by the applicant, and after giving him an opportunity to be heard, the proper officer shall, after considering the reply which is given by the applicant and after giving him an opportunity to be heard, he shall make an order, and he will sanctioning the amount of refund as whole or as part, or he may reject the refund claim. Is that is that when the proper officer issue a notice and the reply is sent by the and the reply is sent by the applicant to the proper officer within the period of 15 days in the prescribed form, the proper officer shall, after considering the reply, the proper officer shall, after considering the reply and after giving him the opportunity to be heard, if he is satisfied or he is satisfied with the applicant, then he will accept the refund in whole or in part, or if he is not satisfied with the reason, or if he is not satisfied with the reason which is given by the applicant, then he may reject the said refund claim. Then he may reject the said refund claim. The said order the said order shall be made available to the applicant electronically. The said order shall be made available to the applicant electronically. And the provision of Rule 92 sub Rule 1 relating to the order sanctioning refund shall mutandis apply to the extent refund is allowed. The said order shall be made available to the applicant. It, it shall be made available to the applicant electronically. And the provision of Rule 92 sub Rule 1. The provision of Rule 92 sub Rule 1 relating to the order sanctioning refund shall mutandis apply to the extent refund is allowed. No application for refund shall be rejected without giving an applicant an opportunity to being heard. Means any of the application for the refund shall not be rejected. An application for the refund shall not be rejected without giving an opportunity to be heard. Means if the proper officer wants to reject the application, before that he will give the opportunity to be heard to the such applicant. Then after, If he is not satisfied with the reason of applicant, then after he can reject the application. Otherwise, before giving the opportunity to being heard, he cannot reject the application. Withholding of a refund claim. Withholding of refund claim. Section 54, subsection 10, subsection 11 and 12. Withholding of refund claim. Where an order giving rise to the refund is the subject matter of appeal. Where the order which is given, where an order giving rise to a refund is a subject matter of the appeal. The order the order of the refund is a subject matter of appeal or further proceeding, or where any other proceeding under this act is pending, or where any other proceeding under this act is pending, and the commissioner is of the opinion that grant of such refund is likely to adversely affect the revenue, where the order of refund is subject to appeal or any further proceeding, or where any other proceeding under this act is pending, and the commissioner is in opinion that the grant of such refund is likely to adversely affect the revenue, then in the said appeal or other proceeding on account of malfeasance or fraud committed, he may, after giving the after giving the opportunity to being heard to such taxable person, he can withhold the refund till such time as may be determined. Till such time as may be determined. When the order of such a refund is the subject matter of appeal, proceeding, or any other proceeding, and and it is likely to be adverse, it has a adverse effect on the revenue, then then the authority may the authority may, after giving an opportunity to being heard, or the proper officer may, after giving the opportunity to being heard to said person, to such a taxable person, he can withhold the refund till such time he can withhold such amount of refund till such a time as may be determined. As may be determined, he can he can withhold the amount of refund. He can withhold the amount of refund. The detailed provision are as follows. Now we will discuss such provision in detailed form. Rule 92 Subrule 2. Rule 92 Subrule 2 stipulates that where the proper officer, public commissioner, is of the opinion that where the proper officer and the commissioner is of the opinion that the amount of refund is liable to be withheld under the provision of section 54, subsection 10 and subsection 11, where the proper officer or the commissioner is is of the opinion that he is in the opinion that the amount of refund, the amount of the refund which is claimed by the taxpayer person is required to be withheld under the provision of section 5410, 54 subsection 10 and subsection 11, then the commissioner or the proper officer, he shall pass an order and informing the applicant the reason for withholding of such a refund. He shall pass an order and he shall inform the applicant. He shall pass an order and he shall inform the applicant the reason for withholding such refund. Means he will also intimate to the applicant about the reason why the amount of tax is withheld by them. Sorry, amount of refund, why the amount of refund is withheld by them. Section 54, subsection 10. Section 54 subsection 10 stipulates that Section 54 subsection 10 stipulates that where any refund of unutilized ITC, where any refund of unutilized ITC is due in case of zero rated supply and made without payment of tax. Section 54, subsection 10 stipulates that where any refund is unutilized, where any refund is unutilized, where there is any refund of unutilized ITC is due in the case of zero rated supply, which is made without the payment of tax. Unutilized ITC in case of zero rated supply, in the case of zero rated supply, made without payment of tax or inverted duty structure to the registered person who has defaulted in furnishing his return, who has defaulted in furnishing any return, or who is required to pay any tax, interest, or penalty, which has not been stayed by the court, tribunal, or appellant authority by the specific date. Then the proper officer may. In this case, the proper officer may, number one, he can withdraw, he can withdraw the payment of refund. He can he can withdraw the payment of refund which is due until the said person has furnished the return or paid a tax, interest, or penalty as the case may be. Is that the proper officer or the commissioner, they can withdraw the amount of such a refund till the date when the said taxpayer who has not filed his return and who has not paid the amount of interest, taxes, and penalty, then they can withdraw the amount of refund, which is due until the said person until the said person until the said person has furnished until the said person has furnished the return or paid the tax, interest, or penalty as the case may be, till the date when he will not furnish. Sorry. Until the said person has furnished the return or paid the tax, interest, or penalty as the case may be, till the date of his filing of return, till the date of his payment of tax, return, and penalties. He may deduct, he can deduct, or they deduct from the refund due any tax, interest, penalty, or fees, or any other amount which the taxable person is liable to pay, but which remain unpaid under this act or under the existing law. Or the proper officer or the commissioner, they can deduct such amount, they can deduct the amount of tax, they can deduct the amount of tax, interest, penalty, fees, or any other amount which is required to be paid, which is required to be paid by the taxable person, but which is unpaid, then they can deduct these amount from the refund due, means from the amount of refund they can deduct all the amount of such dues which remain unpaid under this act or under the existing law. A specified date shall means the last date of filing an appeal under this act. A specified date shall means the last date for filing an appeal under this act. Section 54, subsection 11. Section 54, subsection 11. Subsection 54, subsection 11 stipulate that where an order giving rise to a refund is the subject matter of appeal, where a order has been issued and which giving rise to the refund, which is and such a refund is a subject matter of appeal or further proceeding or any other proceeding under this act, and it is pending, and such proceeding is pending, then the commissioner is in opinion that then the commissioner is an opinion that the grant of such a refund the grant of such a refund is likely to adversely affect the revenue in the said appeal and or other proceeding on the account of malfeasance or fraud committed. He may, after giving the opportunity to being heard to such taxable person, he can withdraw the refund till such time as he may determine. He can withhold such amount of refund till the time as may be determined. But before that, he will give the opportunity to be heard. So that section 54 subsection 1 explain that where there is a order of refund and such order is subject matter of appeal, subject matter of proceeding or any other proceeding under this act, and such proceeding is pending, then the commissioner or the proper officer and the commissioner is in opinion that the grant of such refund has a likely effect, has a adverse effect the revenue in the said appeal or other proceeding on the account of fraud or on the account of malfeasance. He may, after giving the taxable person an opportunity to being heard, he may, after giving the opportunity to being heard, he can withhold the refund amount. He can withhold the refund amount till the time as he may determine. Till the time as he may determine. However, where the refund is withheld, however, where the amount of the refund is withheld under section 54 subsection 11, where the amount of refund where the amount of the refund is withhold under section section 11 under section 54 subsection 11, then the taxable person shall then the taxable person then the taxable person shall, notwithstanding anything contained in section 56, to be entitled to interest at the rate 6% per annum. Where the amount of the refund is withholded under section 54 subsection 11, then the taxable person shall, notwithstanding anything contained in section 56, be entitled to interest at the rate 6% per annum if, as a result of appeal or further proceeding, he become entitled to refund. If on the basis of proceeding, on the basis of appeal, it is found that he is become liable or he is become entitled for the refund, then he shall be eligible for the amount of interest. The rate of the interest will be 6% per annum on the amount of such a refund. Means he will obtain the amount of refund also on the amount of such refund. Credit of the amount of rejected refund claim. Credit of the amount of rejected refund claim. Rule 93. Rule 93 provide for the credit of the amount which is rejected refund claim, which is rejected, where any of the discrepancy is found by the proper officer in the refund claim, where any discrepancy is found by the proper officer in the refund claim. Then, then he has been communicated it with the applicant. Then he will communicate it with the applicant under Rule 9T sub Rule 3. The amount which is earlier deposited or sorry, the amount which is earlier debited under Rule 89 sub Rule 3 shall be recredited to the electronic credit ledger account. It will be recredited to the electronic credit ledger account. When any amount which is claimed as refund is rejected, when, when any amount of the claim which is refunded by the taxpayer is rejected under Rule 92, whether fully or partly, the amount debit to the extent of rejection. The amount which is debited due to the rejection will be recreated to the electronic credit ledger by an order which is made in prescribed form. If the deficiency is properly satisfied, or it is properly eliminated, or it is properly corrected, then the amount of the refund will be recreated to the electronic credit ledger of the applicant, and the amount of the refund which is rejected under Rule 94, whether wholly or partly, then the amount debited to the extent of rejection, then the amount which is debited due to the rejection shall be recreated. It shall be recreated to the electronic credit ledger by an account which is made in prescribed form. It will be recreated to the electronic credit ledger. For the purpose of this rule, a refund shall be deemed to be rejected. For the purpose of this rule, a refund shall be deemed to be rejected if the appeal is finally rejected. For the purpose of this rule, the refund shall be deemed to be rejected if the appeal is finally rejected, or if the claimant gives an undertaking in writing to the proper officer that he shall not file an appeal, then it will be considered that the application of the refund is rejected. Principle of unjust enrichment. Now we will discuss the concept and the principle of unjust enrichment. Section 54, subsection A, subsection 8A and subsection 9. Principle of unjust enrichment. Theory of unjust enrichment. First, we will discuss the theory and the provision of unjust enrichment. What is unjust enrichment? Unjust enrichment means the retention of the benefit by the person. The retention of the benefit by a person that is unjust or inequality. Unjust enrichment means retention of a benefit by a person. Retention of the benefit by a person that is unjust or inadequate. Inadequate. Unjust enrichment occurs. Unjust enrichment occurs when a person retains money or benefit which is justice, equity, and good conscience belong to someone else. Unjust enrichment occurs when the person who retain the money and who retain the benefit which is justice, which is equity, which is in the good conscience and which is belong to the someone else, which is belong to the someone else. This principle stipulates that this provision or this principle stipulate that no person can be allowed to enrich inequitably at the expenses of another. This principle explains that no person can be allowed to enrich inequality at the expenses of another. A right of recovery under the doctrine of unjust enrichment arises where retention of the benefit is considered contrary to justice or against equity. The theory of unjust enrichment under GST, the theory of unjust enrichment under the GST is only where it is applicable only where the person who has not passed the incidence of tax will be eligible to claim the refund. Means when he will not pass the incidence or the burden of tax to the any other person, the tax which is eligible to refund. If he pass the burden of such tax to any other person, then it is not to be considered as unjust enrichment, where the amount of tax has been recovered from the recipient, where the amount of the tax which is refundable has been recovered from the recipient, then it shall be deemed that the incident of tax has been passed on the ultimate consumer. On the ultimate consumer. So in this case, it will not be considered as unjust enrichment. Under unjust enrichment, there is a presumption is always drawn. Under the unjust enrichment, presumption is always be there that the businessman will shift the burden or the incident of tax to the final consumer. There is a presumption, there is always a presumption that the the tax in the respect of which refund is available is shifted by the businessman to the final consumer. This is because the GST is an indirect tax. The GST is an indirect tax whose the GST is a indirect tax whose incidence is to be borne by the consumer. It is an indirect tax. The burden of the GST is ultimately borne by the consumer. So it is the reason that why refund claim is sanctioned is first transferred to consumer welfare fund. Is that this is the reason when the refund is sanctioned by the proper officer or by the commissioner, then it first transfer to consumer welfare, and when it is properly satisfied that and when it is properly satisfied that there is a unjust enrichment, then after the it is after the determine whether there is a theory of unjust enrichment, then the amount of the refund will be transferred to the taxpayer or will be transferred to the person who is eligible for the refund of such tax. If the claim of the refund passes the test of unjust enrichment, if the claim of the refund passes the test of unjust enrichment, means it is found that there is unjust enrichment, then it is paid to the applicant. If it is found that and and the refund and the claim of the refund passes the test of unjust enrichment, then it will be considered that it is okay, and such amount of refund which is transferred to the consumer welfare fund will be transferred to applicant account. The GST law makes this text inapplicable. The GST law makes this test inapplicable in the case of refund of unutilized ITC, refund on the account of export, and the refund of payment of wrong tax, refund of tax which is paid on a supply which is not provided, or where refund voucher is issued, where a refund voucher issued, or if the applicant shows that he has not passed on the incident of tax to any other person. Is that such the provision of such unjust enrichment is not applicable in the case of refund which is utilized, the refund of the utilized, the refund of unutilized ITC, refund on account of export, refund of payment of wrong tax, refund of tax which is paid on supply, which is not provided, or where refund voucher is issued, or if the applicant shows that if the applicant shows that he has not passed the burden of such he he has not passed the burden of such tax to the another person. In all other cases, the test of unjust enrichment is need to be satisfied to claim the refund by the applicant. Means in all other cases, such provision is applicable, and without proving the concept of or theory of unjust enrichment, the amount of the refund will not be credited to the account of applicant. As discussed earlier, the crossing of bar of unjust enrichment, if the refund claim is up to 2 lakh rupees, then a self-declaration. If the amount of the refund claim is up to 2 lakh rupees, then a self-declaration of the applicant is required in the respect that the effect of the effect that the the burden of the tax has not been passed by him to any other person, and the amount of tax is not suffered by the any other person. If 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 the officer is satisfied, then he will provide the or he will credit the amount of such a refund to such person. But in case if the amount of the refund claim is more than rupees 2 lakh rupees, if more than rupees 2 lakh, then a certificate of cost accountant or the certificate of chartered accountant will require to be made about such unjust enrichment. Means after checking or after the verification of accounts, the the chartered accountant or the cost accountant will give a certificate, and in which he will clear that the tax burden is not transferred by such person to the another person. So up to the amount of 2 lakh rupees, self-declaration about the unjust enrichment is required. But if the amount of refund is more than 2 lakh rupees, then the certificate of chartered accountant or the cost accountant is required. Now we will discuss cases where theory of unjust enrichment is inapplicable. Cases where the theory of unjust enrichment is not applicable. It is not applicable. Section 54, subsection 8 stipulates that the refundable amount shall, instead of being credited to the consumer welfare account, to be paid to the applicant if such amount is relative to, is that the amount of the refund, if the proper officer or the commissioner is not satisfied with any of the provision. Means he is not satisfied that there is the concept or the provision of unjust enrichment is satisfied or not. If it is, if he is not satisfied, then he can transfer the amount of refund to the consumer welfare account. Section 54 subsection 8 contain all the point about that where the amount of refund credited to the customer welfare account. Means section 54 subsection 8 contain the point where the amount will be transferred to applicant in place of credited to or transfer to customer welfare account. If such amount is related to number one, refund of tax which is paid on the export of goods or export of service or both, or on or or the tax which is paid on input or the input services which are used in making such export, is that the amount of the tax which is paid by the applicant on the export of services, export of goods or both, or on the inputs or input services which are used for making such export, then such amount of tax will be refundable and it will be directly transferred to or created to the applicant account. It will not be credited to consumer welfare account. Number two, refund of unutilized ITC. The amount of tax or the amount of refund of unutilized ITC in the case of zero rated supply. In the case of zero rated supply, which is made without the payment of tax or accumulated ITC on the account of inverted duty structure, then such amount of refund means the amount of unutilized ITC. In the case of zero rate supply, it will be transferred to applicant account. It will not be transferred to consumer welfare account. Number three, refund of tax which is paid on supply which is not provided. If there is any tax of amount of tax which is paid by the taxpayer, but in the respect of such payment, no supply is made or no invoice has been issued. So in this case, the refund of such tax, the refund of such tax will be created to applicant account and it will not be transferred to consumer welfare account. Number four, refund of tax in the pursuance of section 77 is that the tax paid on the transaction which is treated as intra-state supply, but subsequently it was found that it is a interstate supply. It is an interstate supply or vice versa. So in this case, so in this case, the refund of tax will be made in the account of applicant or in the account of applicant and it will not be transferred to customer welfare account. Number five, the tax and interest, if any. The tax and the interest, if any, or any other amount which is paid by the applicant. If he had not passed on the he has not passed on the incident of such tax or interest to any other person, is that when there is any amount of tax or any of the amount of interest, the burden of such tax and the burden of such interest is not passed by such person to any other person, then if it is satisfied, then the amount the amount of such a refund will be transferred to applicant account and it will not be transferred to consumer welfare account. Next, the tax or interest borne by such other class of person, such other class of applicant or such other class of person as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of council. So in this case, the tax or interest, the refund of such a tax or interest which is borne by the some such a specific class of applicant as may be notified by the government on the basis of notification or on the recommendation of GST Council. So such amount of refund will be directly credited to the applicant account. It will not be credited to customer welfare account. So these are the cases in which the amount of refund will be transferred to customer account or will be transferred to applicant or taxpayer account or registered person account. It will not be transferred to consumer welfare account. Disbursement of refund of state tax. Now we will discuss disbursement of refund of state tax. The government may disburse the refund of the state tax in such manner as may be prescribed. Means the disbursement of the refund of the state tax is made by the government in such a manner as may be prescribed. And all these manners are prescribed under section 54 subsection 8a. Refundable value to be credited to the consumer welfare fund in all other cases. The amount of the refund will be credited to the customer welfare fund in all other cases. Means in our previous slides we have discussed the cases where the amount of refund will be credited to the applicant account instead of created in the consumer welfare account. Other than all other circumstances, other than previously discussed circumstances, the refund value will be credited to consumer welfare account. It will be credited to consumer welfare fund. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any judgment, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any judgment, decrease, order, or direction of the appellate tribunal or any court or in any provision of this act or rule made thereunder or in any other law for the time being in force. No refund shall be made except in the accordance with the provision of section 54 subsection 3. In 6, refundable amount shall be credited to the consumer welfare fund. Is that if there is any judgment, there is any order, there is any direction or proceeding of the appellate tribunal or any court or in any other provision of this act or made thereunder or any other law for the time being in force, the amount of the refund shall be made except in the accordance with the provision of section 54 subsection 8. Insists the amount of the refund shall be transferred to or shall be credited to consumer welfare account. It will be transferred to consumer welfare account. So on the basis of such discussion, we have discussed the part 2 of refund, in which we have discussed one of the main concept of unjust enrichment, and we have also discussed the procedure of refund. We have also discussed the procedure of refund, how to claim the refund, and in what condition the amount of the refund is directly credited to applicant account, and what are the situation in which the amount of the refund is credited to the consumer welfare fund. And we have also discussed some other important provisions relating to the refund. Thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, bye bye and have a nice day.